Good afternoon. Welcome to Options Standards and Members video. We're going to go through SMH on multiple time frames, and then when we get to the 65, we'll go check out some of those semiconductor stocks while we come up onto AMD earnings tonight. But first, I want to show you this from 2000. SMH did nothing but tank, and of course had a huge bounce, but really didn't go anywhere, and then had a final crash after the 2008 recession. And it has done nothing but gone up since. Of course, there's been major corrections, but look at that. Look at that ramp. So in my mind, from SMH, we don't have any more information behind here. This initial move, this is the low here. And this is, to me, a single move here. And so I think overall we'll have a correction, a sharp correction, 62%. And we'll take a look at all this in a sec. But what I want to show you this. This was astounding. Look at MJ when it came out. Yeah, it went up a little bit, but just nothing but tanked. Okay? And I know I bought some more today. I know I've been harping on this one, but I truly believe this is the low or near low, and we're going to see something like SMH where, you know, the ETF comes out and everybody buys it, and it tanks and tanks. I think this might be the situation. Sure, we could be in here and then we have a nice large move and it could come down here. I don't think that's the case because of the position that MJ stocks are. A lot of catalysts, commodities going through a big run and such. But this, I think it will overcome the 45. On MJ, 45 would have been the high here. And, you know, it'll take some time to get back to the 45. But I think it's going to surpass it quite a bit. So enough of that. Let's move on to SMH. We have these highs here. If you look at some of the oscillators, we're at a peak. We don't have any negative divergence here. I think it continues to go higher over time. So I just think we'll have a correction. We do have divergence in the monthly time frame for the RSI, and we have a sell signal already as well. So right now, in just the big picture of things, I think this is simply a 1-2 correction. And I think we have a 5-wave move down. Could this just be an ABC? Absolutely. Does this have to correct this full length? I think it's likely, but that could be a 5-3-5. But it could just be correction of this move here, and the extension can move on. You know, with the semiconductors, data, and tech, just AI and all that good stuff that's going to benefit in the future after the recession, in my opinion. I think, you know, maybe this has just got to correct this entire move here, and then it extends. Let's go to the weekly. So on the weekly time frame, SMH split, so all of my drawings are no good right now. So we got to redraw these. But on the weekly time frame, we'll focus up here. So right now, we're in the uptrend from this low, and we came down to test that, and the 50-week moving average had a nice bounce off of it. I do think this next move down here is going to break that trend. So we either have a 1-2 or an AB going in this situation. We had our high here, negative divergence on the RSI. We're testing, you know, you have the lead line that had moved down. This thing's not oversold. I'll tell you that. All it did, you see the histogram going back to 0? All it did was retest here. And that was just our lower high, dead cat bounce. Nice ABC, beautiful. And I think this continues lower. We're getting our sell signal just now here on the weekly time frame after the bounce. So my opinion is that we start moving down the rest of this week after earnings tonight. If I don't know if that's going to be the case, maybe they're super positive and we go back up for a new high here. But my guess is that AMD is going to hold down the market and Google might have a bullish move. It's in a really good setup. It doesn't have to. Earnings can do anything, but that's just the position I think we're in, where AMD is going to be very bearish, bring down the semiconductors. NVIDIA is going to come down with it, and Google's going to have a positive reaction. Okay, here's kind of that rising wedge there, expanding wedge. We had the Fed pivot here, made new highs, and we had divergence in this last high here. So I think that, this possibly could go a little bit higher. I'm sorry, the daily time frame, we do not have divergence. So if AMD happens to be a move higher, and we can redraw this, a bear flag, maybe it only connects those two tops here and here. And if AMD is positive, maybe we get a slight new high to test the gap up there, and that will create the negative divergence we have. So, this can go either way. But again, I think my position stands where Google is positive and AMD is negative. We'll see. I'm not playing them, by the way. Let's go to 65. On the 65, we have this drawn out this way. So again, we can go up here to test what the first sign will be. It'll probably gap up or gap down. So, we won't have time to react to that. But if it does gap down, I think it'll be a gap and go. Likewise, depending on where this gaps, if it has earnings are wild. So if you have a gap up and maybe Google's down to kind of even it out, and you have AMD gap all the way up here, just a massive gap, in my opinion, at that point, I would sell right away, and I will sell that. So if we have a gap to the top here, we have negative divergence everywhere, and I think we'll have a gap in crap. Okay, so right now, how I'm counting this, and this is why it kind of gives me the situation. I think this is an impulsive move, and we have an ABC. We started to correct, and now we have, so that's a 1, 2 with a flat pattern, and now we're just getting a minor, lower degree 1, 2, and we'll gap down and go. So I see it that way, and you see where our target is at 229, about to 230, and let's see what kind of, on the traditional technical analysis, 230, if we gap down or so, will be below the trend. So we'd be breaking down the trend, and it would close the gap there. So we'd probably see a reaction off the bottom of the gap, maybe back test this trend, and head lower for wave 5. So in my opinion, that's how it's going to lay out. But again, if this gap's up in the morning, that will be a sell. I will definitely have some puts on that for this to gap and crap. Right? AMD earnings, that's a little earning thing right there, 10:29. We'll see it about 4 p.m. when the bell closes. So in my opinion, this one has a lower highs, lower high, lower high, and it's just coming into another lower high. So that's the setup, and this is a bear flag. Okay, so we could go and do our retracement, and this, it really doesn't have to do anything. So we're almost to the target, we're almost to the 62% there. So maybe it does gap up and pushes SMH up higher, and then crap to the 786. But really, this is a setup right here. We're getting to it right now. Again, I'm not shorting it, but this would be a 1-2 setup at this point, and we start heading much lower to break this bear flag to the downside. So earnings are unpredictable. I'll say that over and over again. Now let's go to NVIDIA. NVIDIA, bear flag. It looks different because it's, I mean, I can't really call it a bear flag. It's a wedge that made a new high. And we finally have divergence in NVIDIA. So this is also another sign with all the divergences on the weekly down to 65. This, I do believe, is done. And we're in that same predicament that we talked about on the Qs a few days ago, I think on the weekend video, where it might have been Friday. The Qs were setting up to make a 1-2 setup. And then I was wrong the next day. The Qs made a new high. This one, we're in the same predicament. So is this a 1-2, 1-2? And then we go lower? I think the setup is good for that. That's what I'm banking on. That's what my money is towards. So what others could be looking for is that this is a correction, and then we have a kind of a 1-2 setup for a higher move here in NVIDIA. And I just don't think it has the strength left to do it. Let's see what else we have. Let's go to, this is nowhere in sight. Let's see, that's on a couple days from now. Intel, this has just been a dog. AVGO, Broadcom, still could. This looks like, to me, an ABC correction. You had ABC for A, B, and C, and I think this one could be primed. I'm kind of looking at my other screen right now where things look negative, but this looks like it could make another high here. But if this is counted some other way and it wants to just follow what the market does, this could be a 1-2 setup. All right, because this was a new high here. This was a new all-time high, and it looks like we had divergence on that high. Micron, this one I think is going to continue to go higher, but again, this, if it wants to just set up just like all the other ones and follow the market, then I think this was an initial move here and an ABC correction, and now we're just kind of getting lower highs, and this should follow suit at that point. But this looks a little bit more like it has potential to move because it's had such a vicious move to the downside. And yeah, that's where I stand on here. So we have a lot of bear setups going into earnings tonight. But most of all, I think that the market is going to I think it's going to be real negative the rest of the week. And we do have GDP in the morning too. So lots of things to go. I think the bearish play is going to just play out. I'm not going to do these earnings plays, but it just seems to me that Google, for example, has an inverse head and shoulder, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. It could finish out this move for a deeper retracement because the retracement was not that deep either at this point. So, right about there. Yeah, it could form a divergence if it wanted to go up to this 175 area, which would test the gap. It seems like, that would be the case where it closed the gap here and maybe tested the gap up here. So that could gap up and then crap after that, because I think this is still, again, a big move to the downside for initial 1 and then 2 setup. All right, so I'm calling. It doesn't have to, I mean, honestly, it could just move down from here. So, again, I don't play these, but very rare that I play earnings. Like I did for Boeing, but Boeing, I think everything's baked in. So you had this big old channel here that broke down and is back testing. So. If it gets back above it, then that's bullish for Google. But right here is another setup to the downside. So we'll see what happens. I'll see you guys. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.